The royal marriage contract was still wet with King Garen's blood when Mara Fenwick heard Severin Thorn say her name. "She will remain useful," the keeper of the royal pack ledger murmured beyond the moonwood screen. "The frost march obeys her scent. Once the marriage is witnessed, that obedience passes into the royal line." Mara stopped, with one hand resting on the bronze door ring. Beyond the screen, the annual winter oath renewal waited to begin. Hundreds of wolves stood inside Howl Hall, prepared to place their trust in the crown for another year. Mara had performed the rite 11 times. Each winter, she had pressed her pulse into the moonward stone and allowed it to carry her heartbeat across the northern border. King Garen's voice came low. Mara was promised continued command. "Command beneath your new Luna," Severin replied. "Lady Celestine's pure blood will make the transfer hereditary. Mara need not lose rank. She will simply cease to own what she built." A parchment shifted across the table. Through the opening, Mara saw Garen beside the marriage contract naming Celestine Vale as future Luna Queen. Beneath the marriage terms waited a second clause. "All military oath marks anchored to the crown shall pass to the recognized royal bloodline." Her command. Werewolf. 11 years of broken winters, sleepless marches, and names carried home to grieving families. Not dismissed. Not honored. Inherited. For one cold instant, Mara understood the shape of her place in Garen's life. She had never been his equal. She had been a bridge that was expected to remain standing after everyone else crossed it. The realization did not break her. It hardened something that had been bending for years. Garen placed his palm over the claws. "She will understand necessity." Mara opened the door. Both men turned. Severin's pale eyes sharpened, but Garen's face revealed more. He had known she might refuse. He had simply believed she would refuse quietly. The bells above Howl Hall began to ring. "The council is waiting," Mara said. Garen stepped toward her. "Mara, this is not what it appears to be. It appears to be a contract transferring my war oath to children who do not exist. The border needs continuity." "The border has continuity. It has me." Severin folded his hands behind his back. "No commander is greater than the crown. Then the crown should have no difficulty holding the march without me." Mara entered Howl Hall. Conversation died as she crossed the black stone floor. The moonward stone waited at the chamber's center, veined with silver light. Around it stood the Howl Council and nearly 200 captains. At the northern side of the hall stood Rowan Vale, Alpha of Hollowpine. He had arrived before dawn to petition for aid at his failing western ward. The Royal Council had kept him waiting beneath the carved wolf standards while they prepared a marriage celebration. Rowan did not watch Garen. He watched Mara. His gaze moved once to the pale oath scar circling her wrist, then to the untouched blade waiting beside the moonward stone. Most people would have mistaken her stillness for obedience. Rowan's expression suggested he recognized it as the moment before a line broke. Mara climbed the oath dais. As she had done every winter, her fingers brushed the hilt of the oath blade before she took it. The gesture was older than thought, a private acknowledgement of the lives bound to whatever choice she made next. Garen entered behind her. "High Warden, step away from the stone." For 11 years, Mara had obeyed that voice before it finished speaking. This time, she drew the blade. Mara pressed its edge beneath the crown-shaped seal burned into her wrist. Pain flashed white as steel opened the old scar. Silver light spilled from the wound instead of blood. "I, Mara Fenwick, withdraw my heartbeat from the royal war oath. My loyalty cannot be married, inherited, reassigned, or owned." The moonward stone cracked. Every wolf in the hall staggered as the scent of winter iron vanished from the royal bond. It disappeared from Mara's lungs as well. For one heartbeat, her chest felt hollow, as though a door she had leaned against for 11 years had opened into empty air. Her wolf recoiled into silence. Mara locked her knees and remained standing. Across the hall, Rowan's head lifted sharply. He had smelled the same absence. His green eyes returned to Mara's wrist, and the assessment in them changed not to admiration, but recognition. He understood the cost. Garen caught the edge of the dais. Severin did not move, but triumph flickered across his face so quickly Mara almost missed it. That frightened her more than the crack. "You will retain rank beneath the new Luna," Garen said. "Do not turn private disappointment into treason." Mara removed the High Warden's chain and placed it at his feet. "I am not leaving because you chose another woman. I am leaving because you chose to keep my obedience after taking away my consent." One captain stepped out of formation, then another. 14 Frost March captains lowered their renewal blades. "We will not renew," Captain Elian said, "until the Northern Oath is judged." Severin raised his voice. "Any officer withholding renewal during an active threat may be charged with desertion." Rowan left the Northern Arch. Snow melted from his dark wolfskin cloak as he crossed the hall. He stopped beside the dais rather than before Mara, placing himself neither above her nor between her and the crown. "Then charge me first," he said. "Hollowpine's western ward has been failing since midnight, and the crown has ignored my petition for 6 hours." His eyes met Mara's. Only for a moment. There was no pity in them and no demand, only a hard, dangerous question. "Are you truly free enough to act?" "If you are done serving people who treat loyalty as property," Rowan said, "come protect the ones they left waiting." Before Mara could answer, the severed mark on her wrist pulsed. Once. Twice. A third time, hard enough to drive her to one knee. Rowan moved half a step toward her, then stopped himself when she raised one hand. She would stand on her own. Far beyond the palace walls, a warning horn began to howl from the Frost March. Her oath was broken. Something was still using it. Mara was on her feet before the warning horn finished its second call. The pain in her wrist remained, but she ignored it. 11 years of command had trained her body to move before fear could settle into it. "Frost March signal," Captain Elian said. 3 long notes. "Ward collapse." Garen descended from the dais. "You no longer hold authority there. The people beneath that ward do not know that. You broke your oath in front of the council, and the ward answered me anyway." That silenced the hall. Severin recovered first. Which proves the danger of her actions. The Northern network is unstable because its commander severed herself from it without authorization. Mara looked at him. He stood perfectly still, his pale hands folded over the black ledger at his waist. He showed no surprise that her severed mark still pulsed. Only readiness. He had expected something to happen. "Open the royal storehouses," Mara ordered. Garen's expression hardened. "You do not command my quartermasters." "No, you do." For a moment, she thought he might choose the border over his pride. Then Severin leaned close enough to murmur something near his ear. Garen looked toward the captains who had lowered their blades. No supplies leave the palace under the command of officers refusing renewal. A coldness settled over Mara that had nothing to do with winter. "You would deny Frostmere medicine and moon salt to punish me? I would prevent an unauthorized force from creating greater disorder." Mara turned away from him. "Elian, gather anyone willing to serve under temporary border law. Take only personal weapons, winter cloaks, and what provisions belong to us." 14 captains moved immediately. Others hesitated. Mara did not ask them to choose. Loyalty demanded under pressure was only another kind of ownership. Rowan fell into step beside her as she crossed the hall. "Hollowpine has 30 scouts within an hour of Frostmere," he said. "Fast wolves, light armor, no royal supply dependence. You are offering them? I am offering equal command over the defense. Mara stopped beneath the outer arch. Snow blew through the open doors, carrying the sharp scent of pine, stone, and distant fear. My ward is failing, Rowan continued. My wolves will not answer to a commander they did not choose. Neither will I. Once, those words would have sounded like a challenge. Now they sounded like the first honest condition anyone had given her all day. Equal command, Mara agreed. Your wolves remain yours. My captains remain mine. At the ward, the person with the better plan speaks first. Something shifted in Rowan's expression. Not a smile. Approval. They reached Frostmere near moonrise. The settlement crouched beneath a ring of standing stones glazed with ice. Silver light moved through the carvings in weak, uneven pulses. Beyond the ward, dark shapes paced between the trees. Not ordinary wolves. Hollow-eyed creatures formed from spoiled moonlight pressed against the boundary, testing it with blackened claws. Mara dismounted and placed her palm against the nearest stone. The ward shuddered beneath her touch. Her severed oath mark burned. You should not still be connected, Rowan said. I am aware. A crack opened across the stone. Silver light leaked from it like blood. We cannot repair the whole circle before moonset, Mara said. We hold it long enough to move the villagers into the inner hall. The western stones are weaker, Rowan replied. If we reinforce only this section, the pressure will move there. Then we cross, anchor. Rowan's gaze sharpened. You broke a royal oath less than an hour ago. The moon, Echo, belongs to commanders, not crowns. It will expose strain and dishonesty. A brief silence passed between them. Do you intend to lie to me? Mara asked. No. Then give me your hand. They stepped inside the ward circle. Mara cut her palm with the edge of her oath blade. Rowan did the same. Their blood touched the stone together. The moon echo opened. His heartbeat struck against hers, steady, controlled, carrying a fear so deep it had become part of his breathing. Not fear for himself, for Hollowpine. She felt empty granaries, exhausted patrols, children sleeping beneath patched roofs while their alpha counted how many winters his pack could survive. Then Rowan felt hair, the hollow place in her chest. 11 years of being useful. 11 years of mistaking dependence for love. His fingers tightened around hers, but he did not look away. The ward brightened. For one suspended moment, Mara felt his strength move beside hers rather than over it. Now, she said. They drove their joined command into the stones. Silverlight raced around the circle. Rowan's scouts pulled villagers toward the inner hall while Mara's captains reinforced the western line. The dark creatures struck the boundary and recoiled. The ward held. Then Mara felt something impossible beneath her palm. A second pulse. Not Rowan's. Not hers. A heartbeat hidden inside the stone. The silver light reversed direction. The ward did not break beneath the creature's attack. It opened from inside. The inner pulse struck again. The ward split along the western stones. Not outward toward the creatures, but inward toward Frostmere's houses. Fall back from the circle, Mara shouted. Rowan released her hand at once. The moon echo snapped shut, leaving his fear and heartbeat echoing inside her ribs. Mara drove her oath blade into the opening, while Rowan ordered his scouts to pull the remaining villagers toward the stone hall. Dark moonlight poured through the fracture. One of the hollow creatures forced its head between the stones. Mara caught it beneath the jaw, twisted the blade, and pinned it against the ward until Rowan's lieutenant drove a spear through its throat. The creature dissolved into cold ash. The breach widened. Mara could not seal it. Not without moon salt, and Garen had ensured she carried none. Abandon the outer circle, she ordered. Form 2 defensive lines around the inner hall. A captain stared at her. If we surrender the ward, we surrender stone, not people. That distinction saved Frostmere. The outer circle collapsed before moonset. Mara's captains held the northern lane, while Hollowpine's scouts moved families through cellars and narrow alleys the creatures could not enter in numbers. Rowan fought beside his wolves rather than behind them, shifting only when the line nearly broke. His gray wolf tore one creature from a doorway, then returned to human form with blood freezing along his shoulder. By dawn, every villager was alive. Frostmere's ward was dead. Mara stood among the broken stones while snow covered the ash. The failure began inside the circle, Rowan said. Someone placed something beneath the ward, or connected it to something already here. Her oathmark throbbed once in agreement. The abandoned command station stood beyond the eastern wall. Frost had sealed its shutters, and the royal lock remained intact. Mara broke it with the hilt of her blade. Inside, the air smelled of old parchment, lamp oil, and the faint metallic trace of command scent. Rowan entered behind her. You are searching a royal post without authority. I had authority here for 11 years. You surrendered it yesterday. Mara opened the first ledger cabinet. Then you should report me. I am deciding whether the paperwork would be worth the effort. She almost smiled. Almost. The station had been evacuated too quickly. Patrol maps remained pinned to the wall. Supply slips sat beneath a cracked inkstone. A current muster roll lay open on the commander's desk. Mara scanned the names, then stopped. Rowan. He came to her side. Mara pointed to the 7th line. Derek Vale, Hollowpine Scout, assigned to Western Supply Patrol. Rowan's expression went still. He died at Blackwater Ford, he said, 6 years ago. The next name was another Hollowpine wolf. Then another dead soldier from the Frost March. The dates beside their names were current. Their scent seals had been pressed into fresh black wax. Someone is using dead wolves to fill active units, Mara said. For what? To create soldiers who cannot contradict orders, demand supplies, or testify. A floorboard creaked behind them. Mara turned. No one stood there, but the scent seal beside Derek Vale's name began to glow. A command rolled through the station, not spoken aloud. Western Patrol, kneel. Rowan's body locked. His knee struck the floor. Mara caught his arm before the rest of him followed. Pain ripped across her severed oathmark as the moon echo reacted to the false command. The sensation was unmistakable. Her old oath knew the dead man's seal. Fight it, she said. Rowan's jaw clenched. His wolf pressed against the command, furious but confused. Mara tore the wax seal from the page. The pressure vanished. Rowan rose slowly, breathing hard. That command carried Garen's authority, he said. No, it carried the shape of it. Hoofbeats sounded outside. Several riders approached through the snow. Mara crossed to the window. 6 Royal Ledger officers dismounted beside the broken ward, accompanied by armed guards. Their leader carried a black destruction case. Official record disposal, Mara said. Rowan looked at the open muster roll. They came quickly. They knew the ward would fail. Mara removed blank patrol sheets from a lower drawer and placed them over the muster roll. Using the side of a charcoal stick, she copied every raised scent impression and signature onto the clean parchment. The station door opened below. By order of the keeper of the Royal Pack Ledger, a voice called, all outdated emergency records are to be surrendered for destruction. Mara folded the copies beneath her armor. Rowan picked up the original ledger. You take the evidence, she said. I will keep them looking at me. That sounds dangerously close to giving me an order. It is the better plan. This time Rowan smiled. Small, sharp, gone almost immediately. He slipped through the rear storage door as the officers climbed the stairs. Mara remained beside the desk. The lead officer entered and froze when he saw her. Former Warden Fenwick. These records belong to the Crown. Then the Crown should explain why its dead soldiers are still receiving commands. His face changed. Only slightly. Enough. He crossed the room and seized the muster roll, never noticing it was lighter by several pages. His men began loading documents into the destruction case. Mara watched the final ledger disappear. On its lower corner, beside Derek Vale's false scent seal, was a black crescent stamped in wax. Severin Thorne's personal ledger mark. Royal riders searched the eastern road until dusk. They found no sign of Rowan or the missing ledger. Mara met him 2 miles north of Frostmere, where Hollow Pine scouts had concealed the surviving villagers. He handed her the ledger without ceremony. Snow had melted into his dark hair, and dried blood marked the tear in his shoulder. "You let them burn the rest," he said. "I let them believe they had." Mara drew the charcoal copies from beneath her armor. Rowan's gaze rested on the pages, then on the blood darkening the bandage around her severed oath mark. "Efficient," he said. "Surprised?" "No. Reassessing." A scout arrived from White Hollow. Its ward had begun flickering shortly after dawn. Royal Masons had repaired it only 3 weeks earlier. They reached the settlement before nightfall. White Hollow stood between 2 frozen ridges, its homes clustered around a wardstone taller than a man. Fresh moon salt filled the carved channels, and a royal supply marker had been driven into the earth beside it. Everything looked correct. That made Mara distrust it. She scraped a little salt onto her glove. True moon salt dissolved against skin, leaving cold silver. This powder remained grainy. Rowan knelt opposite her. "What is it?" Mara crushed the crystals between 2 fingers. Gray dust collected beneath her nails. "Silver ash, mixed with moon salt. Enough real salt to make the stone glow. Enough ash to weaken it whenever the ward draws power." The repair had not failed. It had been designed to fail slowly. Mara ordered the villagers away from the outer houses. Rowan sent scouts along both ridges and placed his wolves at the northern and southern paths. He did not question her decision or repeat the order in his own name. He simply made it happen. The restraint unsettled her more than resistance would have. A horn sounded from the eastern road. Royal investigators appeared beneath white banners before the evacuation was complete. Their commander raised a sealed proclamation. "By authority of the Crown, former Warden Mara Fenwick is forbidden from interfering with royal ward repairs." Mara held up the contaminated salt. "Then record what your repair contains." The commander did not look at it. The royal supply marker flashed. A deep pulse moved beneath the settlement. The wardstone cracked from base to crown. Dark moonlight burst through the channels, throwing Mara backward. Houses near the boundary shook as hollow creatures formed beyond the ridges and rushed toward the breach. Too precise. Severin had waited for her inspection. "Inner square," Mara shouted. "Move everyone behind the granary wall." The royal commanders seized her arm. "You are under arrest for sabotage." Rowan stepped between them without drawing his weapon. "You may arrest her," he said quietly, "after the children are no longer standing beneath a collapsing ward." The first creature reached the outer houses. Mara tore free and ran toward the civilians. She could have defended herself before the investigators. Instead, she carried an injured elder to the square, placed captains along the alleys, and ordered the contaminated channels sealed with clay to slow the breach. Rowan followed her plan without claiming it. Together, their forces held the creatures outside the granary until the final family reached shelter. By then, royal messengers had already departed. At sunset, Severin's proclamation reached every nearby pack. Mara Fenwick had damaged a functioning royal ward, obstructed investigators, and endangered White Hollow through unauthorized command. The Crown would now place all border wards under direct central supervision. Mara read it once and folded it. They prepared the accusation before the stone broke, Rowan said. Yes. A shout rose near the northern path. One of Rowan's younger wolves stood beside the royal supply marker, trembling. His pupils had widened until his eyes were almost black. Alpha, the wolf whispered. Rowan approached slowly. Step away from the marker. The wolf's head turned toward Garen's stamped seal. A scent spread through the snow-warmed cedar, royal smoke and command. The wolf bared his teeth at Rowan. Then he lunged at his own alpha. Rowan caught the attacking wolf by the throat before its teeth reached him. He did not strike back. Cut down the marker, he ordered. Mara drove her oath blade beneath the royal seal and tore the iron posts from the frozen earth. The cedar and smoke command scent vanished. The young wolf collapsed against Rowan, shaking so violently his claws scored the snow. I heard the king, he whispered. Inside my head. Rowan steadied him until his breathing slowed. Then he looked at Mara. That marker was delivered with the ward supplies. So were the false moon, salt, and the repair orders. Mara collected the broken seal, the contaminated crystals, and the charcoal copies of the dead soldiers' scent marks. Individually, each could be dismissed. Together, they suggested design. By midnight, she had covered the floor of White Hollow's granary with maps. She marked every failed ward in black, every royal supply route in red, every command marker in silver. Rowan sat across from her, one forearm resting on his raised knee, while Hollowpine scouts brought reports from neighboring settlements. At first, the failures appeared scattered. Then Mara shifted the northern map over the central territories. The routes aligned. Each damaged ward lay along a chain of royal storehouses, courier stations, and military posts, not a road network, a relay. The attacks are moving through the supply lines, Rowan said. No. The attacks are following the places where the Crown can install authority without drawing suspicion. Her oathmark pulsed beneath its bandage. A ward failed. Royal masons arrived. They replaced the moon salt, planted a command marker, and entered new soldiers into the muster rolls. The next failure occurred farther along the same route. Severin was not responding to the crisis. He was building it. Rowan rose without explanation and left the granary. He returned near dawn with ice on his cloak and a narrow metal case chained to his wrist. You disappeared, Mara said. You were occupied. That is not an answer. It is the answer available until we know whether the room is listening. He set the case on the map and opened it with an alpha's claw. Inside lay sealed Howl Council records. Mara recognized the black binding used for restricted experiments. Where did you get these? Hollowpine once housed the Council's Northern Archive. Severin ordered it emptied 5 years ago. My former archivist kept what she believed should not disappear. The oldest document carried Severin's signature. The Council had authorized him to study whether separate military oaths could be joined during wartime. The authority was limited to abandoned wardstones, willing commanders, and temporary trials ending at moonset. The later pages described something else. Transfer without renewal. Command sent preserved after death. Authority carried through relay stones. The Council never approved these stages, Mara said. No, but Severin tested them anyway. Her gaze returned to the map. He weakens the wards, sends creatures toward the settlements, and offers centralized command as the solution. And every frightened pack that accepts a royal marker becomes part of the network. Mara's goal changed in that moment. Repairing one ward at a time would only help Severin extend the next relay. They had to find the original source. The moonward stone beneath White Hollow still carried a faint, unnatural pulse. Mara and Rowan entered the damaged circle before sunrise, when the last moonlight lay across the snow. "We cross anchor once," Mara said, "long enough to trace the direction of the drain. Your wolf is already quiet. So is yours when you are frightened." Rowan's expression tightened. "Do not use what the oath showed you as a weapon. I am using it as a fact." They cut their palms and joined hands over the stone. The moon echo opened harder than before. Cold flooded Mara's bones. Rowan's heartbeat entered hers, fast beneath its discipline. She felt the weight of Holopine, but beneath it lay something more private, the fear that anyone he failed to protect would become another grave he had to remember. Then he felt Herr Wolf, far away, struggling behind a wall of silence. His hand tightened around hers. "Mara, find the current." They followed the hidden pull beneath the ward. It ran east, then south, splitting through several relay points before disappearing toward the royal territories. The strain intensified. Rowan stepped closer to keep her upright. Their joined hands pressed between them. His other hand settled at her waist, firm but waiting, as if he would release her the instant she asked. The moon echo stripped away caution. She felt his attraction before she saw it in his face. Not possession, attention, restraint, want sharpened by respect. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth. Mara leaned toward him before the ward convulsed. Pain tore through her oath mark. Her wolf vanished completely. The connection broke. Mara would have fallen if Rowan had not caught her. A healer rushed into the circle and pressed glowing fingers to Mara's wrist. Her expression changed. "The oath is still drawing from her," she said. "That is impossible," Rowan replied. "She severed it, not the relay beneath it." The healer looked at Mara with open alarm. "Something is draining your life force even when you are nowhere near an active ward." The healer wrapped Mara's wrist in blackroot cloth and ordered her to remain outside every ward circle until the source of the drain was found. Mara was studying the next supply route before the healer finished tying the knot. "You did not hear me," the woman said. "I heard you. That is not the same as obeying." Across the room, Rowan stood with both hands braced against the map table. His expression had gone still in the way Mara had begun to recognize as controlled fear. "What happens if she cross anchors again?" he asked. The healer looked at Mara, then at the captains gathered nearby. In private, Mara folded the map. "Anything affecting my command can be said before my officers." The healer hesitated. A horn sounded outside. Not a ward alarm, a royale proclamation. They stepped into White Hollow Square as a mounted herald unrolled a sheet bearing Garen's blood seal. "By order of the Alpha King and the keeper of the Royal Pack Ledger, Mara Fenwick is charged with creating unauthorized relay wards, falsifying repair orders, and obstructing the lawful stabilization of the Northern Territories." Mara felt the crowd turn toward her. The herald continued. "Documents bearing her oath signature prove that she authorized the altered ward materials now endangering the border. Until the Howl Council completes its investigation, she is forbidden from addressing the council, commanding crown soldiers, or entering any royal ward circle." Copies of the forged orders were passed through the square. The signature was hers. Not similar. Hers. The curve of the final letter carried the slight break caused by an old injury to her thumb. Even the scent pressed into the wax matched the winter iron trace of her former oath. Severin had not merely copied her name. He had copied the part of her the wardstones recognized. Rowan took one sheet, read it, and tore it in half. The herald reached for his sword. Mara stepped between them. "Do not give Severin the violence he came to collect." The herald smiled without warmth. "Any settlement sheltering you will lose royal grain, medicine, moon salt, and winter passage until it accepts a crown command marker. A murmur of fear moved through the villagers. Severin's strategy was precise. He did not need to prove Mara guilty. He only needed to make standing beside her too expensive. Mara turned to Captain Elian. How much food remains in the independent stores? Enough for Frostmere and White Hollow. Not enough for every threatened pack. Then divided again. Mara. No household receives a full share, while another receives nothing. Send scouts to Hollow Pine's mountain routes. Use hunting stores, monastery grain, anything not controlled by the royal road. Rowan looked at her. Hollow Pine will open every reserve. You barely have enough for your own winter. We will decide what we can give. Not I will decide. We will. The distinction reached her despite the pain pulsing through her wrist. By evening, wagons left White Hollow under independent guard. Royal patrols blocked the main roads, so Mara redirected them over frozen shepherd paths and through abandoned mining tunnels. For 3 days, Severin tightened the border. For 3 days, Mara's people found another way through. On the 4th night, the ward at Briar Glen began to collapse. More than 200 villagers remained inside its boundary. Mara arrived to find the outer stones already splitting and hollow creatures gathering in the forest. The healer caught her arm. You cannot enter. Without a cross anchor, the eastern line will fall before evacuation. Then Rowan anchors it alone. One commander cannot hold both directions. Rowan's jaw tightened. We find another way. There is no other way. Mara entered the circle. Rowan followed. Their cut palms met over the stone. The moon echo opened and something inside Mara tore loose. Her wolf did not answer. Not a whimper. Not a distant movement. Nothing. The ward drew from her human heartbeat. Instead, Mara held long enough for the final children to cross the inner gate. Then the world tilted. She remembered Rowan shouting her name. She remembered snow against her cheek. Then nothing. When Mara woke, she lay inside Briar Glen's meeting house. Rowan sat beside the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at a folded medical report in his hands. How long? She asked. 6 hours. The ward? Lost. The villagers survived. She pushed herself upright. The room swayed. My wolf? Rowan looked at the report. Then he folded it once more and placed it beneath his coat. Quiet, he said. The healer believes rest may bring her back. It was not the whole truth. The moon echo was closed, but Mara had learned the small changes in him, the pause before an answer, the careful stillness of his hands. She was too weak to press him. Outside, bells began ringing from every royal post across the border. A messenger entered with a black-sealed notice. Severin had scheduled the emergency centralization vote for the next full moon. The same night, every hidden relay stone would reach its greatest strength. Mara waited until Rowan left the meeting house before she opened his coat. He had placed it over the chair beside her bed. The medical report rested inside the inner pocket, folded into quarters. The healer's final warning had been written beneath a black line. One more major cross anchor could permanently separate Mara from her wolf. The words did not shock her. The fact that Rowan had hidden them did. She carried the report to the half-repaired ward outside Briar Glen. Rowan stood within the circle, directing scouts as they traced the buried relay current southward. Leave us, Mara said. Her captains obeyed. Rowan's wolves hesitated until he nodded. When they were alone, Mara held out the report. His face changed. How long have you known? Since White Hollow. Before their hands had nearly met over the wardstone. Before he had promised they would find the source together. Before Briar Glen, you let me enter another cross anchor. I tried to stop you. You withheld the cost. There were 200 people behind that ward, and you decided I would choose them. I knew you would. That was not your choice to make. The ward beneath them pulsed. Their earlier blood still marked the stone, and the moon echoes stirred at the anger between them. Rowan stepped closer. If I had told you, you would have gone in anyway. Then the decision would have been mine. The oath opened without their hands touching. Heat tore across Mara's palm. Rowan doubled over as a line of silver fire raced from the wardstone into his arm. The moon echo had found the deception between them and treated it like poison. Mara felt his fear in one brutal rush. Not fear that she would die. Fear that she would leave him before he had found a way to keep her. The realization hurt more than the burn. You understood what the crown did to me, she said. And you repeated it. Rowan's face went gray. Mara, you are removed from joint command. He went motionless. Holopine's evidence remains under my protection. Your scouts may continue serving if they choose, but you no longer speak for this alliance. Pain moved through his expression, but he did not argue. Understood. Mara turned away before the answer could weaken her. Captain Elian met her beyond the circle with a sealed packet taken from a royal courier. Inside was the complete marriage contract Garin had signed. The transfer clause continued onto a hidden second page. Upon the birth of a royal heir, every military oath anchored to Mara Fenwick's living command scent would become hereditary property of the crown. Her consent was required only for the first oath, not for its transfer, not for its descendant. Attached to the contract was Severin's relay schedule. Mara spread the ledger copies, healer's report, council records, false repair orders, and marriage contract across the command table. The pattern became whole. For 11 years, her oath had not merely strengthened the northern wards. Severin had redirected portions of it through hidden relay stones. He weakened selected borders, created attacks, then used Mara's own command scent to make royal intervention appear effective. The dead soldiers in the muster rolls were not only false names, they were preserved witnesses. Their scent seals allowed Severin to claim that entire military units had consented to commands no living soldier had accepted. The royal markers trained wolves to obey Garin's scent. The counterfeit moon salt kept the wards unstable. Every crisis made centralized control appear more necessary, and the marriage would make the theft permanent. Mara had believed Garin intended to give her command to another woman. The truth was worse. He intended to turn her into an inheritance. Outside, the full moon rose behind the clouds. A pulse moved through the ground, then another. Across the northern ridge, a buried relay stone ignited with silver light. Farther east, a second answered, then a third. One by one, hidden stones awakened across all 7 territories. Mara reached for her wolf. There was nothing. No claws beneath her skin. No second heartbeat. No presence waiting behind her thoughts. She tried to shift. Her bones did not move. From the dark beyond the camp, hundreds of wolves began to howl in the same stolen royal rhythm. Severin had activated the network early. By dawn, Severin's stolen rhythm had reached Hollowpine. Wolves who had slept beneath Rowan's command since birth woke facing south toward the royal territories. Some resisted. Others stood trembling beside the roads, waiting for orders from a king they had never sworn to serve. Rowan returned to his pack without requesting permission from Mara. He did not reclaim command. He entered Hollowpine's winter hall unarmed and placed his alpha blade on the council table. Every captain, scout, healer, and village elder gathered before him. Mara stood near the rear doors with Elian and the evidence cases. Rowan had asked her to witness what came next, not to approve it. I concealed Mara Fenwick's medical warning, Rowan said. I knew another cross-anchor could permanently silence her wolf. I withheld that truth because I feared she would leave the campaign and me. No one moved. I told myself I was protecting the border. I was protecting my own fear. His lieutenant stared at him. You saved 200 people at Briar Glen. Mara saved them. I took away her right to understand the cost. Rowan removed the iron ring marking Holopine's territorial claim over the Frost March and placed it beside his blade. The dispute was older than both of them. Holopine had used it for decades to demand hunting rights, passage taxes, and influence over Northern Command. I relinquish this claim permanently, Rowan said. Holopine will not use land, hunger, or military need to control the future High Warden. A murmur spread through the hall. Then he faced his wolves. The personal loyalty binding you to me as Alpha is released until this crisis ends. You may remain here, join Mara's alliance, or refuse both. No choice will be punished. The ritual mark at his throat dimmed. Several wolves staggered as the instinctive pressure of Alpha authority disappeared. No ruler willingly weakened his own command during an active threat. Rowan had done it before the whole pack. One by one, Holopine scouts crossed the hall. They did not kneel to him. They stood beside Mara. Not all of them. Enough. Rowan turned toward her. The remaining council records, medical reports, and archive seals are yours. I will serve where you place me. I will not ask for command back. Mara studied him. His admission had cost reputation. The released loyalty had cost power. The territorial surrender had cost wealth. Holopine could scarcely afford to lose. None of it restored what he had taken from her. It was not supposed to. I accept the evidence, she said. You remain removed from command. Rowan bowed his head once. Understood. A low vibration passed through the stone floor. The Holopine ward should have weakened when Rowan released his personal claim. Instead, its silver light steadied. The false royal rhythm faltered. Mara crossed to the nearest ward pillar and placed her hand against it. Beneath the stone, she felt dozens of separate heartbeats, not one alpha forcing unity, but wolves choosing to remain connected to their home. The ward does not require permanent ownership, she said. Elian stepped closer. Then what holds it? Consent renewed in the moment. The original Moonward system had never been built to preserve hereditary authority. It had been built to carry freely given trust. Severin's network worked only because he compressed thousands of voices into a single command scent. 7 packs renewing separately could break that command apart. Mara spread the territorial map across the council table. We need simultaneous oath circles in every territory. No crown seals, no permanent bonds. Each wolf chooses whether to lend a heartbeat to the defense. And the original relay? Rowan asked. I sever it from inside the Frost March circle. That will kill you without an external anchor. Possibly. I will take that position. Mara looked at him. You may lose your wolf. I know. There was no hidden report this time. No softened warning. No attempt to decide which truth she could bear. You would still be under my command, she said. Yes. And this will not earn forgiveness. I know that too. Before Mara could answer, royal riders entered Holopine carrying a decree signed in Garen's blood. Severin had arrested 3 Howl Council members and accused them of treason. The Alpha King had granted him emergency authority over every ward, military oath, and supply route until the invasion ended. Mara read the final line twice. The relay network would be fully activated at moonrise. They had less than 1 day to teach 7 territories how to choose one another before Severin made choice impossible. By midday, Mara had divided the kingdom into 7 circles of choice. No banners marked them. No royal priest stood beside the stones. Each circle held only 1 ward keeper, 1 witness, and the wolves who had chosen to come. The messengers carried the same instruction to every territory. No wolf was to be compelled. No alpha could answer for a pack. No oath would survive beyond the night. Each heartbeat had to be given freely. At Hollowpine, Mara faced representatives from all 7 territories across Rowan's council table. Between them lay the complete evidence chain: the copied muster rolls bearing the names of dead soldiers, the counterfeit moon salt, fragments of royal command markers, Severin's experimental records, the healer's report, and the hidden page of Garen's marriage contract. A Western Alpha stared at the contract. "You expect us to believe the crown intended to inherit a living commander? I expect you to read the clause bearing the king's blood," Mara said. "The dead seals could have been forged by anyone." Rowan placed Derek Vale's burial record beside the false muster roll. "My cousin died 6 years ago. Yesterday his scent ordered me to kneel." Silence spread through the hall. Mara moved a black marker across the map, connecting each failed ward to the royal supply roads. "Severin does not need every pack to trust him. He needs your wards weakened, your people frightened, and your soldiers trained to obey a single scent before they realize they have surrendered." "And your answer is another oath," one elder said. "No, my answer is 7 separate choices." Mara assigned each territory a ward circle and a signal fire. At moonrise, the wolves would place 1 heartbeat into their own land. The separate rhythms would enter the relay network together, breaking Severin's counterfeit unity into thousands of individual wills. Captain Elian led teams along the royal supply roads to remove command markers. Hollowpine scouts carried true moonsalt to the damaged stones. Healers received instructions for identifying silver ash before it reached another ward. Mara kept the most dangerous task for herself. The original Frost March circle lay beneath the first command fortress she had served as a young captain. Severin had hidden the oldest relay there, beneath a stone marked with her first oath. If she severed that source, the network would lose its living anchor. If the 7 packs failed to renew in time, the severing would take her heartbeat with it. Rowan stood across from her as she fastened her armor. "You still cannot feel your wolf," he said. "No, and you are entering the source alone. You will hold the external anchor. Without command? Onamin." He accepted the distinction without hesitation. They reached the Frostmarch fortress before dusk. The walls stood empty, abandoned after Severin redirected the garrison south. Beneath the central tower, they found the original ward circle hidden under iron plates. Mara removed the final plate. Her name had been carved into the stone 11 times. 1 mark for every year she had believed her loyalty belonged to the crown. Rowan took his position outside the circle. He wrapped a chain of clean moon silver around his forearm and fixed its other end to the outer wardstone. "If the current turns against you, I will draw it outward. It may silence your wolf. I know." Mara stepped into the circle. Across the territories, signal fires rose one by one. Hollowpine, White Hollow, Briar, Glen, Frostmere. Then 2 southern packs. The 7th remained dark. A horn sounded from the Royal Road. Severin had activated the network before moonrise. The stones beneath Mara's feet erupted with silver light. Royal command scent flooded the fortress cedar smoke blood, and Garen's authority magnified until it felt like a hand closing around every wolf's throat. Beyond the walls, thousands of voices howled in the same rhythm. Rowan dropped to 1 knee as the current struck him. Mara drove her oath blade into the center stone. The network opened inside her. She felt the dead, not their souls, their preserved scent seals trapped in wax and stone, repeating consent they had never given. Severin had used them as witnesses because dead soldiers could not withdraw an oath. Mara understood the final weakness. "The muster rolls," she gasped. "They are holding the false agreement together." Rowan looked toward the tower where Elian's team had carried the copied seals. Destroy them? No. Expose them. If the seals were merely destroyed, Severin could blame Mara again. They had to make every pack feel the false witnesses inside the moon echo. Mara opened the relay wider. Pain split through her chest. Rowan seized the moon silver chain and absorbed part of the current, his body shaking as his wolf fought against Garen's scent. Through the network, Mara sent the names of the dead: Derek Vale, Eon Frost, Sarah Venn, hundreds more. Across the 7 territories, living wolves heard commands spoken through voices they remembered burying. The royal illusion cracked. 6 pack rhythms pushed against it, but the 7th signal fire still had not appeared. Severin's command surged through the gap. Thousands of wolves turned toward the royal territories at once. Their eyes darkened, their bodies lowered, ready to march beneath a command none had chosen. Then the final fire rose beyond the southern ridge. The 7th pack had answered. 7 separate heartbeats entered the network. Not kneeling, not united beneath one ruler, choosing to stand together. The 7 rhythms struck Severin's command scent, and the entire relay began to tear itself apart. The relay shattered across all 7 territories. Silver fire split the frozen roads. Royal command markers cracked in village squares. Wolves staggered as Severin's single rhythm broke into thousands of separate heartbeats. Mara remained inside the original Frostmarch circle, holding the 7 voluntary oaths apart so no pack disappeared beneath another's will. Rowan gripped the outer moon-silver chain, drawing part of the severing force into himself. "Release it," Mara ordered. "If I do, it takes your heart." The chain burned through his arm. His wolf gave one final cry, then fell silent. Mara did not command him again. He understood the cost and chose it freely. Severin descended into the chamber with royal guards and the black pack ledger. "When the borders fall, their deaths will belong to you. You created the failures," Mara said, then sold obedience as protection. He opened the ledger. The preserved scent seals of dead soldiers flared, forcing the stolen royal rhythm back into the network. Mara opened the moon echo to every active ward. Names moved through the stones. Derek Vale, Ilian Frost, Sarah Venn. Their burial dates followed, then the commands falsely issued years after their deaths. Families across the kingdom recognized the scents of wolves they had buried. The contradiction became impossible to deny. The Howl Council entered with Garen, and witnesses carrying the forged orders, counterfeit moonsalt, healer's report, experimental records, and hidden marriage clause. Severin turned to the king. "Command them." Garen stared at the evidence. "I authorized temporary research, not this." "You gave him power and chose not to see its cost," Mara said. "Then you signed a contract making my stolen oath hereditary." Severin drew a moon iron blade and lunged for the original wardstone, intending to destroy the Echo's record. Mara struck first not at him, but at the 11 carvings of her name. The stone split. The relay lost its living anchor. Severin was thrown across the chamber and his ledger opened before the council. His guards lowered their weapons. The staged border creatures dissolved. Mara's heartbeat stopped for one terrible instant. Then her wolf returned, with a weak, furious breath. Severin was chained. Garen dissolved the marriage transfer, withdrew every royal claim over Mara's oath, and admitted his failure. He offered her the crown's command again. Mara refused. She also rejected permanent authority over the 7 packs. Instead, each territory would renew or withdraw its trust every winter, and its elected High Warden could be removed. All 7 packs chose Mara. Rowan's wolf remained silent. He surrendered command and served through winter without asking forgiveness as payment for his sacrifice. In spring, after the packs renewed their trust freely, Mara found him beneath the northern arch. "I will stand wherever you permit," he said. Mara offered her hand. "Beside me, never above me." never in place of me. Rowan waited until she closed her fingers around his. For the first time, Mara was not a weapon, an oath, or an inheritance. She was chosen and still free to leave.